My name is Victor. I am the occult technician, and this is Mind War. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now, back to the show. Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, today we are going to jump into a very dynamic magical technique. This is definitely an advanced technique, and one that I truly learned almost by accident, right? And really what it was by doing something that, again, we've been told not to do, okay? And so this magical technique is titled the third eye. Okay, so we've all heard of the third eye, this idea that there's an eye in the middle of our forehead. You see the images, right? And it's supposed to represent sort of our consciousness, our intuition, our spirituality there inside of our minds. Some people say that it represents our pineal gland, this type of thing, right? That is the esoteric or occult explanation of what it is. Just like with facing your demons, right? So again, when we hear facing our demons, we understand that it means to deal with our internal issues. You take a look at the things in your life, the problem areas in your life, and you face up to them. You own up to them. You take ownership of them, and you deal with them. You quit the drugs and alcohol. You stop being greedy. You eat healthy and lose the weight. Whatever your demons are, that's when you face your demons, right? But remember, that's just the esoteric side of it. That's just the kind of therapeutical side of it. But I, Victor, the occult technician, your best buddy here, I taught you how to actually face your demons in the black mirror. Remember, I told you, you set the black mirror up a few feet away from you. You put the candles behind it. Those candles light up your face, and you sit just far enough away from the black mirror where you barely see your reflection in the mirror. And when you are in the state of somnambulance, when the psilocybin has kicked in and you are looking into the black mirror while you're doing your breath work, while you're doing the kundalini, while you're listening to your hypnotic, and most importantly, doing the stare where you're actually looking through the black mirror, you are going to begin to hallucinate, right? And your face will begin to look like a demon. It will change into all sorts of animalistic type demons. You can actually face your demons in the mirror. No one else has taught you that. I haven't seen anywhere where they give you a step-by-step instructions on how to actually see yourself as a demon in the mirror. And folks, we're doing it again today with the third eye, okay? This one's amazing, and if you have the courage to do it, I really think that you should. So again, the only reason I learned this is because I did something that you're not supposed to do. So one of the nightly rituals where the psilocybin was kicking in really hard, I think I took a pretty big dose on this night, and I went into the bathroom. I had to use the restroom, and I turned around and looked at myself in the mirror. Now, any of you who've ever taken psychedelics and have got the warnings from friends, they always say, don't look at yourself in the mirror, dude. It's just, you're going to get caught up in yourself and it's just going to freak you out, right? Well, this technique, this advanced magical technique of the third eye, it did not scare me. But man, it was wild. And here's what you're going to do, okay? Once you've taken the psilocybin and you've listened to the Gateway Experience tapes and you've gotten yourself into the state of somnambulance, you are going to find a regular mirror in a lighted room, okay? I just did this in the bathroom, right? And here's what you're going to do. You're going to look at yourself in the mirror, and when you do, you're going to see yourself in perfect, crystal clear vision, right? But you're going to use the stare technique that we've talked about so many times. And what that stare technique does is it now creates two separate versions of yourself, right? You start to slowly see two versions of yourself in the mirror. You can go do this today, right? You can do this right now by staring at any object, staring through it, and you'll see that it kind of separates, right? Because we are basically in a way crossing our eyes as we do the stare, as we look through the object. Now here's where the third eye appears, and here's where it gets interesting. When you commit to the stare long enough and you look deep enough past yourself, the two versions of you are going to separate. And what you're going to do is you're going to time it perfectly, you're going to measure it perfectly. And what happens is the left side face and the right side face are going to move apart to where you see your outer eyes, but the inner eyes, they overlap. And now you have the third eye. It's so fucking crazy when you do this. And here's why, right? When you do this perfectly and you align your double vision basically to where that third eye appears, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be so enamored by it, especially if the psilocybin's kicked in, you're going to try to look at the third eye. You're going to try to focus on it because it's so strange to see this third eye appear on your face, right? But here's what fucking happens. It's so fucking crazy. As you try to focus on the third eye, it looks the opposite direction of where you think it should be looking. And it's as if you are not controlling it. It's as if it has a life of its own, where it's looking in its own direction, wherever it wants to be. It's so fucking crazy, okay? It is so wild. Now, for me, when I first experienced it and I'm looking at these kind of dual, this double vision of myself, and this third eye is just looking all over the place. I'm trying to focus on it, but it keeps looking away. It was just wild. It's such a weird kind of, just unnatural feeling. Again, there is no fear here in the mind war, but all of a sudden seeing this eye in the middle of your face, just looking around, you just go, what the fuck, right? And so to me, I was more just taken aback at, holy shit, I just learned and rediscovered, because I'm guessing that there are men in the past who've done this, but I just rediscovered what it means to actually see your third eye. You can actually see your third eye, folks. It's no longer just an esoteric fairy tale. It's no longer just something that you see in art. You can actually see your third eye the same way that you can actually face your demons in the mirror. You can really see your face turn into these demonic creatures. These things are real. We do it scientifically. There is a scientific explanation for, again, you take the psilocybin. It has a intoxicant effect on your mind. It helps you hallucinate. When you do the stare, you're literally just aiming your vision. It's a visionary technique. It's a visionary trick where then now you are kind of seeing double. These things all can be explained by science. They're no longer occult. They're no longer hidden. They're no longer esoteric fairy tales in some story. I'm teaching you how to truly do it. Again, I was so taken aback by it and just kind of shocked and excited about what I found. That's as much as I took from it. I just go, holy shit, I figure out how to view your third eye. And it's so crazy. When you try to focus on that third eye that's appearing in the middle of your face, and it just starts looking around, and the more you try to focus on it, the further it looks away. It truly is like it has a mind of its own. It's very strange, okay? Now, I implore you, now that you've learned this advanced technique, when you go to practice it with purpose. Make sure that you have questions for your third eye. Make sure you have a purpose for bringing it into view. Why are you looking at it? What do you want to learn from it, right? Go further in this than I did. Maybe even attempt to do it in a black mirror. You have to probably have a much larger mirror than the small black mirror that I use, the small scrying mirrors. You might need a larger one. But set things up for this. Maybe you set up candles in the background or whatever. Things that, again, are going to make this experience that much deeper. Maybe set up some black mirrors behind you, so when the third eye appears, you can ask it to call forth spirits through the black mirrors that are behind you. These are all things that you can discover, all things that you can work with. Man, now that I'm saying this, I want to do this again, right? But it's really wild. That is the advanced magical technique of actually seeing yourself with the third eye. It's wild. I implore you to try it the next time you are going to do your ritual magic. And when we return, we'll get back to our book, Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl in just a moment. All right, welcome back, folks. We're going to pick up where we left off in the book, Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl, right after I make a correction. Now, many of you have heard me say that this book was written in the 1800s. If you've seen the last few videos, I said that over and over again, but that was a piece of mis and disinformation from your friend Victor here. My apologies. This book was written in 1923, or at least it was published in 1923. Again, a lot of the information that's in here, Dr. Ernst Schertl was probably learning in the early 1800s and 1900s. But again, it's wild to think that this book is just over 100 years old. The Mind War Estates here is a 100-year-old home. And the idea that, again, as we read through this book, it sounds like it was written yesterday. It sounds like it was written for the same culture that America is living in right now. And I tell you what, folks, for the last 20 years, I've been telling friends and family, we are here in America, we are basically Germany, but 100 years earlier. I can see the very little that I know historically about Germany through that time. I think that we are parallel in so many ways. So that means that America may be Germany in 1925 at this point. So the next decade or two are going to be pretty fucking wild, folks. So enjoy the ride. But anyways, we're going to get back to Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. Last episode was a short reading because I rambled for such a long time about America First or Christ is King. I hope you all enjoyed that. But we're going to pick up where we left off. On page 98, we begin, again, folks, this book, Magic History Theory Practice, was supposedly one of Adolf Hitler's favorite books. There was a historian who did a deep research on Hitler's library, and what he found was that this book was, out of his entire collection, was one that was really the most worn out. It had all sorts of highlights throughout the book, things that Adolf Hitler thought was important. And so this chapter, actually these next few pages, are almost completely highlighted, or were completely highlighted by Adolf Hitler. So let's hear what he thought was so important. Again, page 98, we are starting at the bottom chapter, and it says this: every culture has its declining part, which, as we have seen, is always the longer one, a tendency of entropy. for dilution, abating, disembodiment, and with it a loss of the gods. What we call rationalization and mechanization is only a form of expression of this tendency. As Ernest Gundolf said, before we get to what Ernest Gundolf said, let's take a look at that again. Every country has its declining part, right? So there is an upswing in culture, and then there is ultimately a decline in culture. We here in the West are on the fast track in the declining part of our culture. Our culture, as we've talked about in the last episode, again, think back to those 4 years under Biden. The degeneracy, the filth, the disgust that was pushed upon the American people. And anyone who tried to stand up to it was persona non grata. They were canceled, right? They were basically not even allowed to participate in things like social media. People had their bank accounts stripped from them. This is the world that we may be moving into. This is the world that must be defeated. Some people say, oh, this is what the New World Order is supposed to be. No, it's not. The New World Order is the golden era. A new world filled with a new order. An order that is based upon truth and righteousness and doing the right thing, not filled with corruption and lies and fairy tales, where we gaslight each other and force each other into unnatural ways of being and living. That's not what the New World Order is going to be. That's not what our New World Order is going to be. But again, sadly, the West is on its declining part. And as we have seen, it is always the longer part. That's right. The rise to power is often fast, right? Here in America, we are 250 years old, our country. And, it's such a short time to become one of the most powerful nations in all of human history. It was such a quick meteoric rise, but now we have been on that long decline. But this time that decline seems to be accelerated. It's almost as if the people who are pushing the decline of the West have learned the lessons of how to destroy culture from the past. All the other cultures that were destroyed, they said, here's all the things that worked in the past on how we destroyed one culture after another. I think you know who the we is. I think you know who the they are that I'm talking about, where they go in and they introduce things like just extreme drug addiction, alcoholism, degeneracy, pornography, gambling, usury, basically stealing everyone's money through interest. We see it happening today with, again, America First, Make America Great Again. President Donald Trump just talked about a 50-year mortgage. Are you fucking kidding me? You buy a house for, everyone's saying $500,000 for a typical house, which is not true either. But if you buy a house for $500,000 on a 50-year mortgage, you end up paying like $1.6 million. You're telling me you're going to pay $1 million in interest and that's somehow not a fucking crime? I understand the need for people who borrow you the money to make some money back, right? It only makes sense. If interest is allowed in a country, it should be 10% of the initial price, and that's it. You buy you take out a $500,000 loan, you're going to pay back $550,000. You're going to pay $50,000 worth of interest. That's it. Not this compound interest that goes into the millions. That's absolutely fucking insane. Or more importantly, let's just get away from these interest rates and these loans altogether. We get rid of a lot of people in this country and we start building new homes or whatever we need to do, and we can maybe see a place where people can start actually affording homes again. Who knows? Who knows where this is going to go, but something has to change. And maybe we'll talk about that in future episodes. But again, this tendency towards entropy, for delusion, for abatement, for disembodiment, and the loss of the gods, right? It is. Once you get complacent, the West is so complacent. White men are so complacent. One of the worst generations for this were the boomers. You watch the boomers. My parents were boomers. God bless them. But man, they didn't give a shit about anything important, right? They allowed this filth and degeneracy and this entropy to come into the West, right? They're the ones that allowed it to happen. They're the ones that partied till dawn and just allowed themselves to be called racist and just all of these things. It's disgusting to see what they did to us. And now we are paying the price for it. And again, like my parents are a perfect example. I love them, right? But they voted for every winning president for decades, right? They voted for Bush, Clinton, Bush. Then they voted for Obama. What? Then they voted for Trump. The only winning president that they didn't vote for was Joe Biden, who again stole the election, right? So it's fucking crazy that these people were, again, like we talked about in the last episode, just 7 short years after 9/11, they voted in Barack Hussein Obama, the first Muslim president, after we were told that it was Muslims who attacked the towers. Of course, that's not the real story, but back then we didn't know any better. It's just crazy how far they kind of let things fall. And we hear that idea of, soft men make hard times make strong men make good times, that kind of stuff, right? And that's where we were, right? They were those soft men that really have created some very tough times for us, right? So we'll see what these future generations, this Gen Z, these millennials, what they're going to do. But again, Gen Z, a third of them have been aborted. And half of them are just wild, raging liberals. I mean, it's insanity what these younger people are falling for. It's sad, and I hate to sound like some old guy, Dude, I've been this way since I was a teenager. I've been this way for decades, this same thought process. I'm just now clearly articulating it to all of you. So again, let's get here to what Ernest Gandalf said about this. Gundalf, sorry. He says this: the so-called mechanization is the stepping back of the gods out of the time. The gods always live, but not always are they letting themselves into the time. Okay, interesting. So as we become more complacent, as we become more mechanical and now digital, the gods are stepping back out of our lives. They're stepping back out of the time that we live in. They're still there. That's what this Mind War podcast is about. Reconnecting with the quote-unquote gods, right? And they're always still there, but they're not allowing themselves, or maybe we are not allowing them in. We are being trapped. We are being tricked through these black mirrors that we call the telephones and things like that, into this empathy or into this entropy, into this dilution of what it really means to be an animalistic man. So we go on, this next long paragraph, again highlighted by Adolf Hitler. It says this: the magician, on the other hand, is the distinctly ectropic. That is to say, the force compressing man. He is the custodian of ectropic energy, focuses. He acts against all entropic time tendencies, and he and only he represents the point of origin of possible renewals. Hence, the magician always appears antagonistic to the dominating time streams and is therefore always perceived as evil. But physiologically, he appears as atavistic, like every genius. Magic always means a diving back into states which are overcome by the dominating time. That is to say, with which the bulk of the time is unable to get on with. just like the temples and palaces of great epochs have decayed in later times, because the smaller grandchildren were not up to their great ancestors' works anymore. In the same way are primeval states sinking into oblivion, because the time is rising above it. That is to say, swimming on the surface. The magician is the man who is always newly able to enter the status nascendi, and in whom the latent energies are always newly breaking up, just like dark memories. Wow. Wow. No wonder Adolf Hitler highlighted that paragraph. How powerful. Let's go back through it word by word. The magician, on the other hand, is the distinctly ectropic. Ectropic, again, instead of entropy, where we are not moving, we are sluggish, we are dying, our muscles are melting away, our intelligence is fading because we're not keeping up with our practices, we're not trying to learn new things. That's entropy. But the magician is ectropic. If this podcast is not an example of an ectropic man who is reaching back into the primeval days, reaching back into ancestry, regaining that knowledge through action and sharing it with all of you, I don't know what ectropic is, right? That is exactly what it is. And that is to say, the magician is the force compressing man. What have I told you over and over and over again? When we do these magical techniques, the resonant energy balloon, our healing powers, we breathe in these powers. We allow them to flow through this. We harness them, right? Or if you are doing the reverse resonant energy balloon, where instead of healing, you're dealing with your hate, you're dealing with your anger, you allow that darkness to flow into your head. You bring it down through your chakras and you hold it in your heart. You compress it. You do not let it be diluted by alcohol. You do not let it flow from your veins through self-mutilation and self-harm. Instead, you hold on to your pain. You hold on to your anger. You compress it into your heart. You compress it into your mind, into this ball of obsidian that you use to power your actions. Not your rage, not going off the handle and doing something stupid that's going to result in you going to prison or whatever, ruining your life. No, you're going to hold on to those emotions. If you allow your emotions to just run free, then yes, you act on them in wild and erratic ways, right? You go and you are violent with somebody. You do something stupid that ends up costing you your freedom. What sense does that make? What sense is revenge if you have to give your freedom up for it? No, you hold on to that hate, you hold on to that emotion, and you use it to fuel something bigger. There are so many ways to get revenge, which you will never be punished for. Instead, you will be applauded for. He is the custodian. The magic man is the custodian of ectropic energy forces. The custodian, meaning we are the page of these ectropic energy forces. We are the men who care for it. We not only care for it, but we display it and we share it and we teach it. He acts against all entropic time tendencies. Again, we are in the time of entropy. We are slowly fading away. We act against that. That's what we're doing here in the Mind War. And only the magician, represents the point of origin of possible renewal. All of these people, again, all of these right-wing influencers, these new right influencers are talking about renewal. They're talking about restoration of the West. But what are they doing? They're reaching back to Christianity. We've already done that. We've already been there. We've done it over and over and over again. Not only did we die by the thousands and millions in the Crusades, but then we killed each other. The white men of the West have killed each other because they didn't believe in the same version of Christianity. You are being led to your own destruction, but not the magician. Again, we step away from the societal, cultural, and religious wet blankets that lie to us, that lead us down the wrong path. And it's only the magician who represents the point of origin of possible renewal. It's not guaranteed. It's only possible. And it's only through magicians and men like myself who put themselves on the line. We come out here and teach this information and share it with all of you in the hopes that there will be some sort of renewal here in the West. Hence, the magician always appears antagonistic. If the Mind War podcast is not one of the most antagonistic podcasts out there, I don't know what is. Of course it is. We are going against everything. We are going against the right and the left. We are taking on all of the lies, no matter where they come from. We do not, here in the Mind War, we do not set ourselves in any of these groups. We stand outside of them and we are screaming with bullhorns. You're being lied to. You need to come out of this right now. Come out before the destruction. The antagonism and to the dominating time streams is therefore always perceived as evil, like we've talked about before. The magician, the antagonist who is going up against the mainstream, going up against the dominating time stream, we will always be looked at as evil. Trust me, folks, the right and the left hate the Mind War. The right and the left hate Victor, the occult technician. They think that I'm evil because I'm constantly pushing against the lies that they believe in. I'm constantly pushing back against the lies that they are falling for over and over and over again, and generation after generation. And I have the ability to do this. And I have the right to do this because I believed those lies as well. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm telling you what not to believe. Believe whatever you want. Once you remove those societal, cultural, and religious wet blankets and free your mind, you will find the truth inside you. And I'm trying to show you how to do it. Oh, but Victor, you're a Satanist. You're a cultist. Oh, that's all evil shit. No, it's not. It's simple. I'm teaching you basic, simple things. And I know in the past I've said that I do this because of one reason, and that is hatred. And I said, I know, I don't do this because I love you. I do this because I hate them. But folks, I do love you. You know that. You know I have love for all of you. You know that deep down inside, that's truly what guides me. It's the love for my fellow man. For those of us who are part of a very special group of human beings, not the chosen people or whatever, right? Not that nonsense. I have love for our culture. I have love for our ancestors in the work that they put in to get us to where we are today. But I have hatred, again, for those entropic people, those entropic generations before us that have led us to this place of filth and degeneracy, and ultimately cannot separate themselves from this death cult. And they call us evil, but physiologically it appears as atavistic, like every genius. Again, the genius, we have to be genius in what we do. Magic always means a diving back into states which are overcome by the dominating time. That is exactly what we do here in the Mind War. The dominating time, the mainstream of today is you get one choice. You get to be a Christian. That's it. We will maybe tolerate you here in the West if you're Jewish. That's becoming less and less. We definitely don't, tolerate anyone from Islam. That's kind of being forced upon us right now. And then, of course, if you're just some kind of secular leftist freak and just take things to the furthest extent of degeneracy that you can, that is, it's been celebrated here in the West, but we're going against that as well. We have to, as the magician, dive back into those states that have been overcome. All of the good things that we've talked about throughout this book, they've been overcome by the domineering and dominating societal, cultural, and religious, beliefs that are forced upon us. It's a prison in a way. It's a prison for our mind and our heart and our souls, this idea that we can only choose these few things. Again, once you strip them all the way, there's a freedom in it to where we can reach back into our ancestry and find what is real. And that is to say, with which the bulk of the time is unable to get on with. Again, these ideas that the dominating culture, they can't deal with what we're trying to teach and what we're trying to learn. That's why they call us evil. It says, just like the temples and palaces of great epochs, they have decayed in later times because the smaller grandchildren were not up to their great ancestors' work anymore. We've lost it. We've lost our ancestry. We've lost our culture, the culture from the past that truly represents what it means to be a white European American culture. We can reach back to it. It's still there. It's more powerful and more beautiful than any culture that has ever existed on this planet, and we can reach back to it. Long before America was ever created, long before the Bible was ever written. This is what we're talking about. We have to reach back. And again, remember through the Gateway Experience tapes, we listened to the tape where where Robert Monroe told us we're going to visualize our ancestors. We're going to see where we've come from. And over and over and over, thousands of our ancestors appear in front of us. Now, of course, there is no fear here in the Mind War, but that's the tape that we heard other influencers say, I didn't listen to the Gateway anymore after this. It was too scary, because our ancestors, they were pleading with us. As they stand in front of us, their faces melted away, their skeletons melted away. Of course it was scary. Of course it was freaky. It was one of the craziest experiences I've ever had. But they need us, because they too, in their time, were trapped in entropy. They too only believe that the heaven or hell of the Bible is there. That's their only option. Again, as Robert Monroe taught us through the Gateway Experience tapes, all you got to do is get on that freeway, man. Just keep driving. Drive past the fake heaven. Drive past the fake hell. You're going to see the Lord your God, right? And you're going to tell him, fuck you. You're not real. I'm going further than you. And when you do, that's when you go to the garden. That's when you find out what really exists after life. And then that moves us into the abyss. As we get past the abyss, as we float through it, then we find the absolute. It's beautiful. It's warm. It's comforting. It's the brightest light ever. It's where we came from. It's where we are going back to. But again, the grandchildren, these generations, these younger generations, including the generations that have come before Generation X, but Generation X, really, we are the ones that woke up from the boomer decay. And we are the ones that pushed the boundaries, right? They tried maybe when they were hippies for a few days or whatever, but we are back at it. They gave up. They got their corporate jobs and they never looked back. They conformed to Christianity and they never looked back. They became bootlicking leftists and never looked back. But not Generation X. Maybe we did conform because of the war on terror, because they did 9/11, which again refocused everyone. And again, like I said, I tried to be the patriot. I tried to be the Christian crusader, and none of it felt right. And that's when, again, we got back to those basics of Generation X, and we said, no more. We have to find something real, and that's what we're doing here in the Mind War podcast. It says, in the same way are the primeval states sinking into oblivion. We cannot let our primeval ancestors and the things that they learned and want to share with us through our DNA, we cannot let it sink into oblivion, because the time is rising above it. Again, that dominating culture is rising above all of those wonderful things that are contained within us. Because what have I told you throughout this podcast over and over again? You send your question out into the universe. You ask God for these answers. You ask the absolute, the cosmic dynamic force, whatever you want to call it. You say, please, what's the answer? What's the answer? That's the as above. But the answer comes from within. You know the answer. It lies within your heart. It lies within your mind, and that's the below. As above, so below. You have all the answers in you. You have to strip away the societal, cultural, and religious wet blankets that are lying to you. It's those fairy tales that are forced upon us that are not allowing you to find the answers from within. And that's what we do here in the Mind War podcast. We strip all that stuff away so you can find the answer that's important to you. I'm not telling you what the answer is. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just trying to show you and share with you, here are the steps that you need to do to strip away all of the nonsense so you can find the answer within. And those answers, they are from our primeval ancestors. They are given to us and shared through our DNA. We have all the answers within. Again, it's swimming to the surface. The magician is the man who is always newly able to enter the status nascendi. So again, we as magicians, we are always able. We are always ready. We are always willing to step into that firing line. We are always antagonizing to the point where we will be called evil by everyone, the right and the left. All of the profane is going to hate you for what you are sharing and what you are teaching. You have to be ready to be able to take all of those slings and all of those arrows. I promise you, folks, they do not hurt. Not only do they not hurt you, do they not destroy you, they fuel you. They embolden you. They will strengthen you. You absorb the hatred that is sent to you from all of the profane because you know that they are fools. You know that they are trapped in lies. So their words have no meaning to you. And in fact, again, you know you're on the right path when they say that they hate you. You know that you're doing something right when everyone hates you. That's how this works. And in whom the latent energies are always newly breaking up, just like dark memories. These latent energies inside us, again, that were passed on to us through our DNA from our ancestors. They are breaking through the dark memories of the past. They are breaking through the dark memories of the recent past. Again, looking back to those 4 years under Biden where the degeneracy and the filth was just on full display, right? They are breaking through the dark energies of today, of our present, where it seems like, anyone who was supposed to be leading us into a golden era has now turned their back on us. We can break apart those dark memories and we can again move forward into that golden era. Ernest Gundolf says this: "It defines the greatness of a man. How much legacy of the history is again becoming revitalized into reality in him. How great the amount of sleeping and solid substance is, which his being is filling and awakening again. How deep he is reaching down into the sunken layers, to suck their juices up. Only the magician is therefore able to also learn something from historical symbols. Only he is able to interpret life forms which have faded away. Considering what he is learning, all contemptuous laughter from contemporaries about the old has become silent. Again, the greatness of the man, of the magician, and their ability and the legacy of the history is becoming revitalized into reality in him. That's what you're seeing here today. You are seeing a man in your friend Victor, the occult technician, who is reaching back and revitalizing not only himself, but the new culture based on the old ancestral ways, right? Again, I don't have all the answers. I don't know what all of those ways are going to be, but we're going to figure it out together. This is what it means to create a new culture based upon our old ancestral ways, right? Let's see. Again, the magician is also able to learn something from historical symbols. It's very important. We see symbology all around us. There are very few people out there who can really decipher the symbolic nature of these logos, of these sigils that surround us and the power that they truly have. And we are able to, let's see, I love this part. Considering what he is learning, all contemptuous laughter from his contemporaries about the old has become silent. Again, those people today who laugh at us because we talk about the old ways, because we talk about reaching back into antiquity, into the primeval days, they laugh at us because it's old, but they are becoming silent. They all will be silenced. Ernest Furman writes about this. We have to memorize once and for all that only a priest will get to know something from other priests, and this only in circumstances whose favor are hard to win. Before Europe may have a really new priesthood, it can hardly learn something from other peoples. And it is again this strange tragedy that at the same moment when a new priesthood wants to emerge here and could walk over the earth, the knowledge in the foreign peoples will just have went out. Again, you are seeing an enlightened man in Victor, the occult technician. You are seeing a man who is desperately attempting to become part of the new priesthood and bringing back these old ways in a new form, in a contemporary fashion for all of you. The idea that we are able to share these ancient teachings through this beautiful medium known as video and audio and social media and all this is amazing. Our ancestors would be thrilled with what's going on here in the Mind War podcast. And he says here that the priest only learns from the other priest. Again, to all of you mind warriors, citizen samurais, guerrilla gurus, and warrior monks out there, this is from one priest to another speaking. Okay, I am sharing with you what I've learned, as we've already talked about before, a few episodes ago. We are learning from the priests of the past in the books. The books hold their voice. That's the only way that they were able to pass this knowledge on, is through the books. Some, in the last 100 years, we started to have audio and video, but the majority of their teachings were written in books. I found the simplest book on magic that I could find, the most profound book on magic that I could find, and I am sharing it with you. These are just the basics, and we need to keep it basic. It doesn't have to become this million books from here to the moon and all of these rules and all of these laws. That's what led us to the hell that we are living in today. We have to separate ourselves from that. Keep things basic. And again, share this information from one priest to the other, from one mind warrior to the next. That's how we do this. And when we do, we will be able to share this information across the world. And I love this part. The knowledge of the foreign people will just have went out, as if the candle was put out. This knowledge of the foreign people, you know who they are, all of their different forms, all of their filthy cultures, all of their disgusting thoughts and ideas and ways of doing things. We will snuff them all out one at a time and say, we're not doing this anymore. We're not living this way anymore, okay? There will be no more, let's say, simple things like circumcision. We're not doing that shit anymore. We are not going to traumatize our young boys in the most violent way that we possibly can. That's not going to happen anymore. You look at cultures around the world today, and they are disgusting and barbaric, and they will be done away with. Every single one of them. All of that foreign knowledge will be put out. Therefore, we must always be conscious of the enormous difficulties which are in the way of every magic acting today. We also have to have enough humbleness to achieve and enforce something which does not depend on our will, but on our rank. Again, we are facing an uphill battle. A battle that sometimes I do not know if we're going to win. I truly do not. This renewal is not guaranteed. It's only possible. And it's only possible if we wake up and put our words into action. And we have to be humble enough in order to achieve this. I know that at times I can be a blowhard. I know that at times I can be boisterous and over the top. One of the reasons I do that is for entertainment purposes. I want to be able to entertain you through these episodes, right? But, I think if you have really been following along, if you truly listen to my deepest heartfelt stories, some of my most embarrassing stories, you know how humble of a man I truly am. I have humbled myself in front of basically in the entire world. As far as I know, everyone in the world who has an internet connection can listen to these videos. Now they don't, but someday maybe they will. And it's humbleness, because the only way that we can achieve and enforce something does not depend on our will. We cannot will this. We cannot force this through our will into people's minds, but through our rank. And what does that mean? As you ascend, as you get promoted over and over and over again in your spiritual journey, your rank raises. And when you show people that you have the knowledge, that you have the ability, and you share it with them, your rank rises. And through the rank of Commander of the Mind War, Victor, the occult technician, Uncle Vic, I am sharing this information with you. And it's through my humbleness and my rank, having achieved this, by putting in the work and sharing it with you, that we will make a real change. And we're going to finish up there today on page 100, or right in the middle, from the book Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. And when we return, we'll continue on with my magical journey over on Instagram at The Occult Technician in just a moment. Welcome back, folks. We're going to pick up where we left off on my magical journey over on Instagram at The Occult Technician. You're going to scroll all the way down to a post from October 22nd, 2023, titled Law and Order. This is a fun video, folks. Again, go ahead and watch this one. Basically, what I talk about in this video about law and order is this. As soon as you write down something in the law, you now give people the opportunity to go against it. And the law starts to become corrupted, okay? So right now, or we saw in the past, the law of the United States was that we were not allowed to close the border. We were not allowed to secure the border. That seemed to be the law, right? Now, we had laws that said we should be doing it, but then we also had laws that stopped us from doing it. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? We see some of the simplest laws, right? The 10 Commandments say that thou shalt not kill. Yet, the law here in the West is that abortion is legal, a form of murder. So, how do we have these conflicting things, right? This is where law starts to become corrupted, and it starts to work against the people. Law itself is probably one of the most dangerous tools that the West faces. And instead, we need order. We need to do away, in my opinion, with law for quite a long time, maybe forever, and focus strictly on order. Order is simple. Order means closing the border. Yes, President Trump is trying to do that, and I think he has done a good job. But how long will that last? We do not know. But it's so simple. Such a simple analogy as this. When you go to bed at night and you lock the front door of your home, it's the purpose is to secure the home from illegal invaders. You don't then go and leave the garage door wide open in order for anyone to flow through it. That wouldn't make any sense. You close the front door and the garage door. You secure your home. That's order. You don't go and allow millions and millions and millions of your own citizens to be murdered in the womb, but then say, no, committing murder is against the law. That doesn't make any sense. We have to move away from law. Again, law brings about lawlessness. Again, watch this video titled Law and Order. It was much more eloquent than the way that I'm trying to say it right now. But that was basically the gist of what we're talking about here. Again, law allows lawlessness. I know it sounds strange, but that's exactly what has happened. In our next post from October 29th, 2023, again, I'm trying to do in this post a video of my ritual here. A typical night, a typical full moon night. I was upstairs at the Mind War Manor. I had the obsidian ball there. And, we'll pause it here for a minute because this was an interesting night. So, this is sort of an advanced magical technique, a smaller one. But one of the things that you can do when you are, or that will happen when you're looking at your obsidian ball. So you've done your magical preparatory process. You're in the state of somnambulance. The psilocybin is flowing. You're sitting there in front of your obsidian ball. You're doing your breath work, your kundalini. You have your hypnotic music going. And you're doing the stare. You're listening to the music. You're breathing in and out with the music. And that stare is now going on for 2, 3, 4 minutes. Your eyes are starting to burn a little bit from the incense. And you're staring through the obsidian ball. I'm telling you, that ball starts to transform. In the beginning, it will start to breathe and it starts to expand and it gets larger and larger and larger and almost starts to become a black hole in itself. It gets almost 2 to 3 times as large as you see it when you're just looking at it. This is part of the magic. This is part of the hallucinations that are required to happen when you are doing magic. You need to see these things. You need to see these otherworldly, sort of supernatural things that other people aren't seeing. We'll talk about that more in future episodes. But that's one of the things that happened that night. That obsidian ball would grow larger and larger and become this sort of dark portal into the abyss. Again, where we push our manifestations into, where we ask our questions into, where we push our emotions into. If you are angry about something, push your emotions into that giant portal you've created in your obsidian ball. That's what you want to do with it. Again, you don't want to dull it with alcohol. You don't want to release it with self-harm or by doing something stupid where you physically or violently attack someone and then end up in jail, right? That's not what we do here. So as we go through the rest of this, I pulled the card, the sun. It talks about the sun. That was just, again, a typical full moon card pull. Let's go on to the next. Okay, the next post was from November 6th, 2023. And this was an interesting one, right? Let me start it over real quick. It's titled 4x4x4. And as you go through the first slide there, it says 4 hours per day, 4 days per week, $444 per week. I know this sounds strange, a definite departure. This is me making an attempt at saying, here is what minimum wage should be for all workers. It should be based on the amount of hours that you work, and it should come out to a round, even number, a very solid number that everyone will understand. And the most important part is when you do this, if we are able to create a new culture and get paid in money in this way, again, just for minimum wage, if you want to work more and get paid more, fine. But minimum wage, this is what it should be. For an example, if you work 4 hours a day for 4 days a week, you should get paid $444, and that's after taxes. I don't care what city, what state, and what country you're in, your paycheck should walk away with $444. So everyone will know that they're at minimum wage level, they're all getting paid the same amount and an amount of money that actually is worth their time and effort. So the next example here, let's say you work 1 hour a day for 4 days a week, right? So you're only working 4 hours total per week, right? Maybe you're going and spending time with an elderly person. You're going to maybe grocery shopping on their behalf. You come over, clean their house or whatever. Not a ton of effort, but you should be walking away with $111. Again, 1 hour a day, 4 days a week, 111. Easy. Next, you work 2 hours a day. So now you're maybe spending a little bit more time with this person, or you're going in and actually completing a few tasks. Maybe you just go for 2 hours a day to clean up an office building or something, right? A small dental office that only takes 2 hours to clean each night. You do that 2 hours a day for 4 days a week, you should be paid $222. And what happens is when you put in that extra hour a day, you also make a little bit more money than the person who only works 1 hour a day. And that continues to rise. 3 hours a day, you get $333. 4 hours, $444, 555. 6 hours a day, you get paid $666 a week, right? Do you guys see where I'm going with that? This 666 number, I've literally worked it into what our new basic minimum wage should be. And again, if you work 8 hours a day, you should be paid $888 a week for your 4-day work week. Again, we need to get to a 4-day work week. We need people to be able to truly rest and have time to separate themselves from the profane work. And let's see, it says, work less, demand more. I believe that's what we should do. I'm tired of these corporations not paying people. And again, I'm not trying to be some economist or whatever. This is just a novel way at making sure that the minimum wage around the West, the whole world, this should be a worldwide phenomenon, right? That we all know that at a minimum wage, for the amount of work that you do per day, you're going to make a decent wage. And the harder you work, the more reward you will receive financially. And again, it's what I call the 4x4x4. Who knows? At least it's someone thinking outside of the box. At least it's someone bringing a new thought process when it comes to, making money. We'll see. We'll see what happens. On the next post, November 11th, 2023, this one is called Robert Monroe, the Bob Ross of the Mind. So all of you know Bob Ross. He's that amazing painter. You see him on PBS. He's got the big afro and the beard, and he paints the cute little trees in the wilderness. He plants the clouds and all that stuff. He was such a gentle and kind man. A fun story about Bob Ross. I used to get work experience when I was in high school. So that meant I had a job after work, which allowed me to get out of work or school early. I got out of school every day at like 1:30, 2 o'clock, 2-3 hours before all the other kids did, because I got to go to work every day, And so what I would do is I would get home early. My parents were still at work. I would smoke weed, eat Lucky Charms, and watch Bob Ross and get ready to go to work, right? And really, this post here is just an overlay of Bob Ross's, or Bob Monroe, the founder of the Gateway Experience tapes, his face over Bob Ross, and you hear Robert Monroe talking about what it means to listen to the Gateway Experience tapes. I thought that was just a fun video. Again, my way of trying to create some new digital art there. On November 13th, 2023, we have another new moon. And we pulled the card of Stolas, the 36th demon of the Guedia. And just, again, another typical card pull. You see the worksheet there with all the demon sigils. You see the Mind War Studios here draped in the color yellow. Again, I tried to, at this time, I was choosing a color for each ceremony to kind of represent how I was feeling at the time. So it's just another typical card pull. The next post is from November 16th, 2023. This is when I had really first joined the Kill Podcasters Network. Again, you see Izzy N. Griffin. Again, folks, follow Izzy N. Griffin on Instagram and YouTube. He has skyrocketed in his authority on esoteric symbolism, on esoteric breakdowns. This guy is the new, he has surpassed Alex Jones. He has surpassed any of these people who try to talk about conspiracies anyway, in any shape or form. Izzy has done it just in such an amazing way. He is so thorough in what he does. He understands esoteric symbolism in a way that I've never seen anyone get close to. His podcast is amazing. Find him. I think he's on Patreon and stuff. He's all over the place. He's not only does that, he's a magician as well. He's there with his cousin. This was from the Duh Heads podcast. This is, again, early on in the Kill Podcasters Network. That was a hilarious podcast. It was the new Come Town, if you will. It was very funny. These two guys were great. It was fun working with them for the short time that the Kill Podcasters Network was running. The next post from November 17th, 2023, it says, "Who inspires you?" And again, we'll start out. It says, from the beginning here, it says, "Hey Victor, who inspired you to create the character, the Occult Technician?" Again, the Occult Technician, Victor, this is a character that I play. I am a normal guy, but I come on here in the Mind War podcast, and when I do my art as the Occult Technician, this is a character that I play. The beauty is that Victor and the real me are very close, right? But again, in order to entertain all of you, in order to be able to speak in ways that Dan doesn't normally get to speak, I put on this character. It allows me to have some freedom. Ultimately, I'm an artist. If you look at my Instagram page, the very first thing it says is artist. I am an artist. That's what I'm doing. That's what all of this is. Even my political commentary and all of that, this is art, okay? So who inspired me to create the character known as the Occult Technician? The very first person was Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe. I've always been a huge fan of the G.I. Joe franchise. I always enjoyed Cobra Commander. He was so over the top. He was so overly emotional in everything that he did. He really wore his heart on his sleeve. He truly believed in the mission statement of Cobra to basically take over the world. When you listen to the beginning theme song of the G.I. Joe cartoon, it talks about Cobra being a terrorist organization. I do not believe that. I believe Cobra were ultimately the good guys in this scenario, much in the same way as that the Empire of the Star Wars franchise, Darth Vader, all those guys, they were actually the good guys, not those rebel scum. They were basically the Christians who were trying to bring down the nation, right? So Cobra Commander, I love his style. That's where Uncle Vic, a lot of his style comes from that. The next person who inspired me, again, Bob Ross. We just talked about that. Bob Ross was a huge influence on me artistically because of his gentle nature, because of his ability to break things down. He would teach painting. He was able to break down the art of painting in such a simple way and teach it to the masses, right? The next one, okay, this is great. This is Rusty Cage. He is a newer person in my life, a newer influencer. Find Rusty Cage on Instagram, on YouTube. Amazing artist. I really took a lot of what he did and applied it to my art form. He, I believe, in many ways is a demonologist as well. He doesn't say that, but you can see him fighting his demons. He does an amazing video. I think it's almost a year long. It took him a long time to record it, I believe, where he broke free from alcohol. He was an alcoholic for a long time, it sounds like, and he talks about the struggles as he goes through it. Such a great video. His art is amazing. He built a guillotine for one of his art projects, and then, I mean, just wild stuff. Go find Rusty Cage, amazing artist, okay? Next, Doctor Strange. We're not going to say anything more about Doctor Strange because we're going to talk about him more in future episodes, but very important, okay? Next is Mr. Rogers. Of course, I grew up with Mr. Rogers. Again, a gentle, kind man who broke things down to the very basics. He taught truth to the children. That's what I'm trying to do here. I try to mirror what Mr. Rogers does by breaking things down into their simplest format and teaching them to all of you in a gentle way. Next is Freddy Krueger. Of course, Freddy Krueger, the man of the nightmares, the man of the shadow man who comes into your dreams, right? We have to deal with Freddy Krueger. We have to deal with this man in our nightmares. Not only because we've become Freddy Krueger in our own lives, but we have to overcome him when he comes to attack us. And again, one of my favorite horror movie franchises. I watched this as an adult. I've watched the Nightmare on Elm Street videos as an adult. Freddy Krueger is actually a clown. When you look at it today as an adult, as a kid, he was so scary. He was the scary monster, but you look at him today, he was a clown. He was a comedian. Every scene was bright. It was over the top, and he always had a punchline for every death. I mean, absolutely hilarious movies. Again, one of my goals is to really emulate the artistic style of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Next, of course, Uncle Sam. That's where you get Uncle Vic. I want Uncle Vic to replace Uncle Sam. That's the goal. We are fighting the mind war. It's the new war for the next century, right? Uncle Sam is sorry. I love you, buddy, but your physical war is done. We have moved past it. We are in the mind war now, and Uncle Vic needs to replace Uncle Sam in every way. Next, the Hellraiser box. We've talked about this before. You have to be brave enough. You have to be fearless enough to come down here and open that Hellraiser box. You know you're going to come up against the Cenobites. You know you are going to have to deal with pain and the suffering of your life and the traumas of your life. But that's what we do here in the Mind War. You open up that puzzle box. You allow those chains to tear away at your flesh. You do that because you know it's the only way to grow, and it's the only way to heal is sometimes by going through the darkness, going through the pain. And finally, the last picture there, of course, Grandpa Victor, right? That's where my middle name comes from, is my grandpa, my grandfather Victor. There's a picture of me there as just a little boy sitting on his lap. Grandpa Victor was such an amazing man, kind, gentle, stoic, very intelligent. He taught me woodworking when I was a young boy. He took me into his wood shop, and he made me little swords and a little guitar out of wood. And I tell you, I took that sword and I battled every monster for years. I used that sword to defeat every monster under my bed, right? And in his final days, I had, he was very old, and I had left for the Marine Corps. And before I left, I said, Grandpa Vic, I'll be back in a few months. I hope you're still here. I would love for you to see me in uniform. And I came back, and I had my Marine Corps uniform on, and we talked for a bit, and he was so proud of me. And he died shortly thereafter, after I left and went back to the Marine Corps fleet. He had passed away. And a quick funny story. When I was a young teenager, I was getting into cooking. I was really trying to figure out how to cook. I was just kind of bored at home. And my grandpa asked, hey, what are you going to do someday when you grow up? And I said, oh, maybe be a chef. That might be fun. And he said, there's a lot of homosexuals that are chefs. And that's all he said. And I go, gotcha, Grandpa. that was it. Being a chef was off the table. So that's just kind of a fun story. But he was a wonderful man, a very gentle man. And again, part of my ancestry. And I'm telling you, in future episodes, we get more into my ancestry. But man, you look at my dad and my grandpa and my great-grandpa, they all look exactly the same. And I think someday I'm going to end up looking exactly like these old men. So I love you, Grandpa Vic. I miss you very much. Let's go on to the next post here, November 24th, 2023. This is a wonderful picture, one of my favorite pictures. Are you ready for Mind War? There you see I'm in the front room. This is the room that I practice my full moon rituals in here when I'm here at the Mind War Estates. I have the sigil in front of me on the table. You see Officer Vic on the left and right. There you also see myself, Victor, here, the host of the Mind War podcast. I have the microphone in front of me. I have the Mind War beanie on and the hoodie, right? Again, get them over at Victory Work Apparel on Etsy. And then, of course, Uncle Vic there. He's there as the commander of the Mind War. This picture is basically an artistic form of what I talked to you about before in a few episodes back. Remember, I told you there was a night where I was standing at this exact table. It rose up on a pillar of obsidian, and there in front of me was Uncle Vic, Officer Vic's to the side of me. We saw the army of mind warriors behind them, and we strategized the mind war. This is my artistic version of that, and I'm telling you folks, it took a long time. It took about 6 hours to get these type of photos ready and get all the different pictures taken and then splice them all together. For one single photo, it takes a lot of work, and that was a lot of fun. So we're going to leave it there tonight. Again, another awesome episode. I hope you enjoy where we're going through with this. I hope you liked the third eye advanced magical technique. I thought that was awesome. I really implore you to try it when you're doing your magical work. And until next time, I appreciate you being here, folks. And as always, remember, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.